AITA for freezing my credit after my wife tried to put me on her ex's loan. The part that still makes me feel stupid is that our marriage didn't look dramatic from the outside. I'm Charles, 35, and Claire and I had been married for 6 years. We had a normal rhythm that I thought meant something. Sunday receipts spread across the kitchen counter, automatic transfers into savings every payday, and a rule that anything over a few $100s got discussed before money was moved. It wasn't my rule. It was ours. At least, that was what I believed. Claire was 34, and she could be generous to a fault when it came to her family. Her older brother Dylan had a history of half-finished plans and unpaid favors. He was not a bad person, but he had spent years giving everyone reasons to doubt him. He had borrowed from their mother, Renee, missed repayment dates, changed jobs without warning, and once left Claire covering a phone bill he swore he had canceled. So when Claire started talking about Dylan needing money for a business project, I didn't immediately assume something sinister. The first conversation happened while we were putting groceries away. She was standing in front of the refrigerator, holding a carton of eggs, when she said, "Dylan finally has something real. He just needs help getting through the startup phase." "How much help?" She shut the refrigerator with her hip. "I don't know yet." "Then what are we talking about?" She gave me a look that said I was already making it difficult. "A loan, maybe. Or helping him qualify." I stopped folding the paper grocery bags. "Helping him qualify how?" "Charles," I said, "I don't know yet." That was where we left it. 2 nights later, she brought it up again while I was sorting receipts. This time, there was a number. "About 80,000, she said. I looked up. "Dylan needs $80,000? He doesn't need it from us. He needs someone stable attached to the application." "That sounds like a guarantor." "It might be temporary." "There's no temporary version of being responsible for someone else's debt." She leaned against the counter and folded her arms. "You haven't even seen the paperwork." "I'm not saying no. I'm saying show me what I'm agreeing to." That should have been an ordinary request. Instead, Claire's expression tightened. "You make everything feel like an audit. When it involves $80,000, it should feel like an audit. He's trying to fix his life. Then he can show us a business plan, repayment terms, and the name of the company." She pushed away from the counter. "This is what I mean. You care more about control than helping my family." I remember staring at the receipt in my hand, a strip of paper for detergent and coffee, and thinking the argument had become much bigger than the conversation. Claire had always been sensitive about Dylan. She felt the family treated him like the permanent screw-up. I assumed she was reacting to that. I didn't know she was testing which part of the story I would challenge. Over the next 2 weeks, the details stayed strangely blurry. Dylan's project became a small logistics operation, then a contract-based service, then something he was doing with a partner. Claire said the lender needed household income information, but she never produced an application. When I asked whether Dylan had formed a company, she said the attorney was handling it. When I asked for the attorney's name, she accused me of looking for excuses. Then I noticed a transfer from our joint checking account. It was only $1,850, which was probably why she assumed I wouldn't react strongly. The description showed an online transfer to an account I didn't recognize. I texted her a screenshot. "What's this?" She replied about 10 minutes later. "Deposit for Dylan's filing costs. I was going to tell you tonight." I called her instead. "You moved almost $2,000 without talking to me. It was time sensitive. That doesn't cancel our agreement. I knew you'd turn it into a debate. That is not a reason to skip consent." She sighed into the phone. "It came from the joint account, Charles. Joint means both of us. It means both of us have access. It doesn't mean either of us gets to ignore the other." "Fine. I'm sorry. Can we not do this while I'm out?" I let the call end because she was speaking in that clipped voice she used when she wanted me to feel unreasonable for continuing. That night she apologized again, but the apology was mostly about timing. She said Dylan had needed the payment that day and promised there would be no more surprises. A week later, she told me she had scheduled an appointment at our bank. "It's just a few signatures related to the joint savings information," she said. "They need to verify the accounts before they can finish reviewing Dylan's application." "Why do they need me in person?" "Because your name is on the accounts." "What am I signing?" "Account verification and disclosure forms." "Send them to me." "They don't release the final packet before the meeting." I should have refused to go without seeing it. I know that now. At the time, I thought going to the bank was the cautious choice. A bank employee would be there. There would be formal paperwork. Claire wouldn't be able to keep the details vague. That part was true. She just expected the formal setting to pressure me into signing. The appointment was on a Thursday afternoon. Claire was unusually affectionate in the car. She touched my knee at a stoplight and said, "Thank you for doing this. It means a lot to me." "I'm reviewing it," I said. "I haven't agreed to anything. You'll see. It's not what you've built it up to be." The loan officer, a man named Marcus, greeted us and led us into a glass-walled office. He had a neat stack of papers on the desk and 2 pens placed side by side. Claire sat close enough that our chairs touched. Marcus started with routine questions about our identities and account relationship. Then he turned the packet toward me. "This is the personal guarantee section," he said. "The lender requires wet signatures from both guarantors before final approval." I thought I had misheard him. Both guarantors? Yes. I looked down at the first page. Near the top was the loan amount, $124,000. Not $80,000. Below it was a business name I had never seen. I read it twice. Then I saw the listed owner. Aaron, Claire's ex-boyfriend. The one she had dated for almost 4 years before we met. I didn't move for a few seconds. The office was quiet except for the muted sound of a printer somewhere outside the glass. "Who is Aaron in this application?" I asked. Claire answered before Marcus could. "He's Dylan's business partner." That was the first time she had ever said Aaron's name in connection with the project. I turned another page. Aaron was not listed as a partner. He was listed as the sole member of the borrowing company. Dylan's name did not appear in the ownership section at all. "This company belongs to Aaron." "It's complicated," Claire said. Marcus glanced between us. My understanding was that Mr. Aaron is the applicant and business owner. I looked at Claire. "You told me this was Dylan's loan. It benefits Dylan." "How?" "He's going to work with Aaron once the funding clears." "That is not the same thing." She lowered her voice. "Can we not argue in front of him?" I kept reading. The guarantee language was clear enough even without a law degree. If Aaron's company defaulted, the lender could pursue the guarantors. The packet also referenced financial statements, tax information, and account balances that had already been provided. My information. On one preliminary disclosure page, next to my printed name, was an electronic signature. Charles. Not a scribbled version of my handwritten signature. Just my name in a digital script with a date and confirmation code beneath it. I had never seen that page. I had never approved it. I looked at Marcus. Where did this electronic signature come from? His posture changed. Not dramatically, but enough that I noticed. He pulled the packet closer. The preliminary documents were acknowledged through the email address on file. "What email address?" He read it aloud. It looked almost like mine. My actual email used my first and last initials separated by a period. This one had the period moved and a number added at the end. If someone glanced quickly, it looked legitimate. "That isn't my email," I said. Claire put her hand on my forearm. "Just sign the last page," she whispered. "Don't make this ugly." I moved my arm away. Marcus asked, "Sir, are you disputing the prior electronic acknowledgement?" "Yes." Claire's face changed. The softness disappeared. "Charles," she said under her breath, "sign it or you're destroying my family." I looked at her, then at the borrower's name, then back at the signature field waiting for me. It was the first moment the entire situation became simple. Not emotionally simple. Factually simple. My wife had brought me to a bank under false pretenses, asked me to guarantee a 6-figure loan for her ex, and presented documents showing an approval I had never given. I placed the pen on the desk. "I'm not signing a debt I didn't agree to." Claire sat back as if I had slapped the table. "You always do this when money involves my family." Marcus held up one hand. "I need to pause the appointment. If authorization is disputed, we cannot proceed as though it is valid." Claire turned toward him. "He knew about the loan. He's upset because Aaron is involved." "I knew you said Dylan needed help," I replied. "I did not know Aaron was the borrower." "You're proving my point." "What point?" "That you're jealous and controlling." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because the accusation was so convenient. She had built a situation where any objection could be repackaged as insecurity. I looked at Marcus instead. "Please note that I dispute any prior approval under my name. I also want copies of every document that contains my name, financial information, or purported signature." Claire said, "You're embarrassing me." I kept my voice level. This stopped being a private disagreement when my signature appeared on bank documents. Marcus nodded and began separating pages. We will preserve the application as submitted. The loan will not move forward while the authorization is under review. Claire's jaw tightened. That's not necessary, she said. He's emotional. We can discuss it at home. I'm not emotional, I said. I'm refusing. Marcus did not take sides. He did not accuse Claire of anything. He simply printed a dispute acknowledgement and asked me to initial next to a statement confirming I had not authorized the email address or electronic signature. That was the only thing I signed that day. Claire followed me into the hallway so closely that the door almost caught her shoulder. What is wrong with you? She hissed. I kept walking until we reached the parking lot. What is wrong with me? You humiliated me in front of a stranger. You brought me there under a lie. I told you it was for Dylan. It isn't for Dylan. He's part of the project. His name wasn't on the ownership papers. That doesn't mean he isn't involved. Why is Aaron the borrower? She looked toward the bank entrance, as if she was afraid someone might hear us. Because Aaron already has the company set up. Why does Aaron have my tax information? You gave me access to our records. For filing taxes and managing our household. Not for sending them to your ex. She crossed her arms. There. That's what this is really about. No. This is about fraud. Her eyes flashed. Don't use that word. What word should I use for a signature I didn't make? It was preliminary paperwork. You could fix everything by signing the final page. That answer told me more than a denial would have. She wasn't saying the signature was an accident. She was saying my real signature could retroactively make the fake one irrelevant. I said, you don't get to create my consent and then demand that I legalize it. You're blowing up our marriage over paperwork. No, I'm asking why the paperwork exists. I can't talk to you when you're like this. She walked toward her car. We had driven separately because she claimed she had an errand afterward. I watched her unlock it, climb in, and leave without answering a single direct question. I sat in my own car and didn't start the engine for several minutes. Anger was there, but underneath it was fear. My tax returns had been used. Our account balances had been disclosed. Someone had created an email that resembled mine. I had no idea what else had been submitted or what Claire might still have access to. So I did what I wish I had done the first time she mentioned the loan. I stopped treating it like a marital argument and started treating it like a financial threat. Before leaving the parking lot, I called our bank's security number and added a verbal password to my individual accounts. I asked that no new external transfer links be approved without additional verification. At home, I froze my credit with the major credit reporting agencies and placed a fraud alert. I changed the passwords for my email, banking, tax storage, cloud account, and phone provider. I reviewed authorized devices and found an old laptop Claire sometimes used still logged into my cloud storage. I signed it out. Then I changed my two-factor authentication so the backup codes came only to my phone. I did not empty the joint account. I did not transfer Claire's paycheck or leave her without access to money that belonged to both of us. I moved only the portion that my attorney would later confirm I could protect without creating another problem, and I lowered transfer limits on accounts where I had independent authority to do so. I also downloaded statements. That was when I found the $1,850 transfer Claire had called Dylan's filing costs had gone to a business account with a name matching Aaron's company. I saved the statement as a PDF and took screenshots of the transaction details. Then I emailed Marcus and copied the bank's general fraud contact. I wrote that I did not authorize any loan, guarantee, pledge of collateral, use of my tax records, or electronic signature connected to the application. I asked the bank to preserve all records, including email addresses, timestamps, verification phone numbers, document history, and any information about how my financial documents had been submitted. I kept it factual. No accusations. No dramatic language. Claire came home a little after 8 o'clock. I was at the kitchen table with my laptop closed in front of me. She put her purse on the counter and stared at me. You froze the card. I froze my credit. My card declined at the gas station. That card is tied to an account where I changed security settings. You still have access to the joint debit card. You did this without warning me. You used my identity without warning me. She flinched at the word identity, then got angry again. I was trying to help my brother. Show me one document with Dylan listed as the borrower. You saw the packet for 5 minutes. I saw enough. You don't understand the structure. Then explain it. She opened her mouth, closed it, and looked away. Why did the $1,850 go to Aaron's company? I asked. Her head turned back quickly. You went through the account. It's our joint account. That was for administrative costs. For Aaron. For the project. Why did you say Dylan? Because you never would have listened if I started with Aaron. There it was. Not the full truth, but an admission that the lie had been deliberate. I asked, how long have you been talking to him? A few months. About the business? Yes. Only the business? Her expression hardened. I'm not doing this interrogation. Did you create the email? No. Did Aaron? I don't know. Who submitted my tax returns? I sent the documents the lender requested. Without asking me. We filed jointly. They're my documents too. My social security number is not yours to distribute. She rubbed both hands over her face. You're making this sound criminal. I didn't make the signature appear. She stood very still. Then she said, if you cared about me, you would call the bank tomorrow and tell them you overreacted. That isn't happening. Then what happens to us? It was the first honest question she had asked. I don't know yet. She laughed once, bitterly. Of course. You're going to calculate the marriage now. I'm going to understand what you did before I decide anything. You always need the upper hand. No. I need the truth. She slept in the guest room that night. At 7:12 the next morning, I received a call from the bank's compliance department. The woman who called introduced herself as Elise. Her voice was neutral and precise. We are reviewing your dispute concerning the electronic acknowledgement, she said. The application is suspended. We may need additional verification from you. I'll cooperate. Did you authorize anyone to create an email address on your behalf? No. Did you provide the applicant or your spouse permission to sign preliminary loan documents in your name? No. Did you verbally agree to guarantee the loan? No. I agreed to review information about a possible loan for my wife's brother. I was not told her former boyfriend was the borrower. She paused, probably taking notes. We are not making a determination on this call. Please preserve any relevant communications. I already have. After the call, I checked my phone. Claire had sent 11 messages from the guest room, even though we were under the same roof. Please don't do this. The bank called me. You need to tell them it was a misunderstanding. Aaron could lose the property deposit. Dylan is depending on this. My mom knows and she's devastated. You're punishing everyone because you're angry at me. Then came the one that mattered. Just say you intended to approve it, and we can handle the rest privately. I took screenshots and did not reply. A few minutes later, Renee called. I almost let it go to voicemail, but I answered because I wanted to hear exactly what she had been told. Charles, she said, with none of her usual greeting. You need to stop this before it becomes something the family can't recover from. What did Claire tell you? She said you changed your mind at the bank because Aaron was involved. I never agreed to Aaron's loan. You agreed to help Dylan. Dylan isn't the borrower. He benefits from the company. Have you seen the paperwork? A pause. Then she said, I know enough. That answer stayed with me. What do you know about Aaron's involvement? Claire explained that he had the stronger business structure. So you knew this was his loan. Don't twist my words. Did you know before I went to the bank? Another pause. Claire was afraid you would refuse before hearing the full plan. So everyone decided lying was easier. A good husband protects his wife from consequences. A good spouse doesn't forge the other one's approval. You can afford to be generous. This isn't generosity. It's liability. If this falls apart, Claire will never forgive you. I looked toward the guest room door. She should be worried about whether I forgive her. Renee's voice sharpened. Families handle these things privately. The bank documents are already submitted. It isn't private anymore. She hung up. Less than an hour later, I got a text from a number I didn't have saved. Charles, this is Aaron. Claire said you'd come around once you cooled off. We're on a deadline. Call me. I stared at the message. Claire had apparently given him my number. I replied once. I did not authorize your loan or the use of my information. Communicate through the bank regarding the application. His response came almost immediately. You knew Claire was helping with financing. Don't turn a business issue into a personal one. I saved that too. Then he sent another. She said this was already approved at home. That message was useful for two reasons. It showed he believed Claire was responsible for getting my consent, and it showed he knew the bank did not have a clean approval from me. I did not answer again. By noon, Claire had left the house. She didn't say where she was going. I used the quiet to make an appointment with a lawyer. The lawyer, Monica, listened without interrupting while I explained the bank meeting, the false email, the transfer, and Claire's messages. Then she asked to see everything. She read the text twice. First, she said, protect access. Argue later. I've frozen my credit and changed passwords. Good. Do not empty joint accounts in retaliation. Do not threaten your wife. Do not post about this. Keep communication in writing when it concerns the loan or finances. I'm not trying to punish her. I believe you. But your actions need to look like protection, not punishment, because the documents will matter more than your intentions. She told me to gather my identification, passport, social security card, tax records, account agreements, and insurance documents. She also told me not to reveal every piece of evidence I had. If she knows exactly what the bank can trace, she may adjust her explanation, Monica said. Let the formal process develop. That advice was difficult to follow because I wanted to confront Claire with every contradiction. I wanted to demand access to her phone and ask how much contact she had with Aaron. I wanted to know whether the betrayal was financial, emotional, physical, or all three. But every time I imagined that conversation, I could hear her saying I was jealous. I could see the story changing again. So I waited. The next break came from Dylan. He called me that evening. We were not close. We got along at holidays, but neither of us called the other just to talk. When I saw his name, I almost assumed Renee had sent him to pressure me. Instead, the first thing he said was, "For once, this mess isn't mine." "What are you talking about?" "The loan. I didn't ask for it." I stood up from the couch. "Claire said you needed financing." "I need a lot of things. I did not ask her to get me a 6-figure loan." "Are you involved with Aaron's company?" "No." "Were you supposed to work for him?" "He mentioned a possible job months ago. Nothing was agreed. I never saw an application." I walked into the kitchen and lowered my voice, even though Claire was not home. "Why did Claire use your name?" "I think because you'd be less suspicious." "Did she tell you that?" "She told me not to correct her if you asked about the project." "Do you have that in writing?" "Yes." A few seconds later, screenshots arrived. The first was from Claire to Dylan. "I may need to tell Charles this is connected to you. He gets weird about Aaron." Dylan had replied, "Don't put me in the middle of your marriage." Claire, "I'm trying to get the funding through. You might still get work out of it." Dylan, "I never asked you to use my name." Claire, "Then don't make it harder. If he asks, just say you know about the project." Another screenshot showed Dylan asking why Renee believed he was receiving the loan. Claire had replied, "Mom understands the bigger picture. I need Charles to stop overthinking long enough to sign." Dylan said, "I'm done being the excuse everyone uses. I've made enough of my own mistakes. I'm not taking hers." "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I thought she was exaggerating. Then Mom called and said you were ruining my future. I realized Claire had made me the center of the story. Would you be willing to confirm this to the bank?" "If they ask me, yes." "Send me the original messages, not just screenshots." He did. After we hung up, I sat alone at the kitchen table where Claire and I had spent years balancing our budget. Her coffee mug was still by the sink. A grocery list in her handwriting was stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet from a vacation we had taken 2 years earlier. Milk, soap, apples, trash bags, normal things. That was the hardest part. The evidence didn't erase the ordinary life around it. It made the ordinary life feel contaminated. Claire came home after 10 o'clock. She glanced at me and said, "Are you ready to talk like a husband? Are you ready to tell me the truth?" I already did. "No, you told me you used Aaron because his company structure was stronger." "That is true. Why did you tell Dylan not to correct you if I asked about the project?" Her face went blank for half a second. "It was enough." "Dylan called you," she said. "Yes. He has no idea what he's talking about. He sent me your messages. He's twisting them because he's angry at me." "They're your words." She dropped her purse on the chair. "You went behind my back to my brother. He contacted me because you used him as a cover story. I was trying to create an opportunity for him by guaranteeing Aaron's debt with my identity. It wasn't supposed to become this." "What was it supposed to become?" "You were supposed to sign." There was no hesitation in her answer. I asked, "And if I didn't?" "You always say no at first." "That isn't true. You question everything until people give up." "I questioned 6-figure debt. You would have come around." Is that why you created the fake email? She looked toward the hallway. I didn't create anything. The bank is tracing it. That made her look back at me. I didn't actually know how much the bank could trace at that point. I only knew that I had asked them to preserve records. Monica had told me not to bluff, but I hadn't claimed they had identified her. I had said they were tracing it. Claire's reaction told me she was worried. She picked up her purse again. I'm staying with my mom. Take what you need. You're not going to ask me to stay? No. Her eyes filled, but the tears did not fall. You're throwing away 6 years. I'm protecting myself from something you still won't admit. She left. The next morning, Marcus emailed the document copies I had requested. Some information was redacted because the investigation was active, but the packet showed more than enough. The false email had acknowledged receipt of the guarantee documents 3 days before our bank appointment. The electronic signing record showed the email verification and a phone number ending in the same 4 digits as Claire's mobile number. There was also an uploaded personal financial statement listing my income, retirement balance, savings, and estimated property values. The document had been assembled from information stored in our shared tax folder. At the bottom, the form stated that the information had been certified by me. It had not. I forwarded everything to Monica. She called me after reviewing it. This is no longer a matter you should negotiate privately, she said. Continue cooperating with the bank. Also prepare for the possibility that your marriage and your financial protection are now the same legal problem. I already know the marriage is over. Knowing emotionally and acting carefully are different things. She helped me draft a written notice to Claire stating that I did not consent to the loan, any guarantee, any use of my individual financial records, or any transfer of joint funds connected to Aaron's company. I asked that future communication about the loan be in writing. Claire responded with a long message. I was trying to protect an opportunity that could have helped all of us. Aaron had a property under contract, and Dylan could have had steady work. I knew you would focus on the past and refuse before understanding. The email was only used to keep the application moving. Nothing would have happened without your final signature. You are acting like I stole money from you when I was trying to build something. I read the sentence about the email 3 times. The email was only used to keep the application moving. It was not a full confession, but it was close enough to show she knew the account existed and knew why it had been used. I sent the message to Monica and the bank. Claire called immediately. You forwarded that, didn't you? I asked for written communication. I was trying to explain. You explained that the fake email was used to keep the application moving. You're taking one sentence out of context. What is the safe context for impersonating me? I never impersonated you. Then who did? I don't know. But you knew why it existed. She went quiet. I said, I'm not withdrawing the dispute. You care more about being right than about being my husband. I'm not asking the bank to punish you. I'm refusing to tell them I approved something I didn't approve. You know what happens if they investigate. No, I know what happens if I lie to stop them. She ended the call. 2 days later, Elise from compliance scheduled a formal verification meeting. She said the bank wanted to review authorization, document submission, and the disputed guarantee before deciding its next internal steps. I asked who would attend. She said the applicant, anyone involved in submitting the guarantee documents, and the parties whose authorization was disputed. That meant Claire and Aaron would be there. Dylan was invited to join by video because his role had been referenced in communications provided to the bank. Before the meeting, Monica reminded me of one thing. Do not turn it into a marriage trial, she said. Answer the questions. Ask for the records to be identified. Let inconsistencies sit where they land. Claire arrived before me. She was seated outside the conference room next to Aaron. Seeing them together didn't make me jealous. It made the whole situation look organized. Aaron was 36 and looked exactly as I remembered from the few old photos I had seen years ago. Confident posture, expensive watch, the relaxed expression of someone who assumed every problem could be reframed as a misunderstanding. Claire stood when I approached. Can we talk privately? She asked. No. Charles, please. Anything about the loan can be said in the meeting. Aaron rose halfway from his chair, then sat back down. This doesn't need to be hostile, he said. I looked at him. I agree. Claire seemed surprised that I did not take the bait. Elise opened the conference room door and invited us in. Marcus was already seated at one end of the table with the application file. Another compliance employee joined by phone. Dylan's face appeared on a monitor mounted on the wall. Elise started with a statement that the meeting was for verification, not settlement, and that no one would be asked to sign disputed documents. Claire interrupted before she finished. My husband understood the purpose of the application. He changed his mind when he saw Aaron's name. Elise looked at her. You will have an opportunity to explain. I need to complete the opening statement first. Claire sat back. When Elise finished, she asked Aaron to explain the loan. He said his company had an opportunity to acquire equipment and secure a contract. The financing required stronger guarantors because the business was relatively new. Claire had offered to help introduce him to potential support. Did Dylan have an ownership interest? Elise asked. No, Aaron said. He might have been hired after funding. Dylan's voice came through the speaker. That's the first I've heard of a job after funding. Aaron glanced at the monitor. We spoke about work. We spoke once, Dylan said. You asked whether I knew drivers. That's not a job offer. Claire said, Dylan, don't make this worse. He leaned closer to his camera. You already used my name. I'm not helping you do it again. Elise asked Claire to explain how I had supposedly approved the guarantee. Claire said, we discussed helping with the loans several times at home. Charles knew his financial information would be used. He gets cautious around large decisions, but he agreed in principle. I agreed to review a proposal involving Dylan, I said. I did not agree to guarantee Aaron's loan. You knew there was a business partner, she replied. I did not know the partner was Aaron until the bank meeting. Aaron shifted in his chair. Elise opened the file. The disputed email address acknowledged preliminary guarantee documents, she said. Mrs. Claire, did you create or control that address? No. Did you have access to it? I may have helped set up some application communications. That is not the question. Claire looked at Aaron. He said, I didn't create it. Elise continued. The recovery number associated with the address matches the mobile number you provided on your identification records. Claire's eyes dropped to the table. She said, I may have used my number because Charles doesn't respond quickly to verification messages. I felt something in me settle. Not relief. Finality. Elise asked, did Mr. Charles authorize you to create an email address resembling his and receive verification messages for him? Claire said, he knew we were trying to move the process forward. That is not an answer, I said. She turned toward me. You knew I was handling the paperwork. I knew you said the appointment was about account verification. You're making me sound like a criminal. I'm repeating what happened. Elise asked Marcus to read the timeline into the record. The fake email had been created shortly before the first acknowledgement. It received the guarantee disclosure, confirmed the document, and completed an electronic signature field. The recovery number matched Claire's phone. The uploaded files included joint tax records, bank statements, and my personal financial statement. Then Dylan confirmed the messages Claire had sent him. Elise asked whether he had requested the loan. No. Whether he had asked Claire to use his name when discussing it with me. No. Whether he had any ownership interest in Aaron's company. No. Dylan looked at Claire through the camera. For once, this mess isn't mine, he said. Stop telling people it is. Claire's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. She said, I was trying to help him. He has complained for years that no one gives him a chance. That doesn't mean you get to invent my involvement, Dylan replied. Aaron leaned back in his chair. I was told this was already approved at home, he said. Claire turned toward him. You knew Charles hadn't signed the final page. You said he would. You gave me the forms. I gave you forms for qualified guarantors. I didn't tell you to create an email. His confidence had changed. He was no longer speaking to me. He was distancing himself from her. Claire stared at him. You said we had to keep the deal alive. I said we needed completed documents. You told me the deposit was at risk. It was. And now you're acting like this was all me? Aaron spread his hands. I'm not getting dragged into your marriage. That sentence landed harder than anything else he said. Claire had risked our savings, my credit, and our marriage for a man who was already stepping away from her before the meeting had ended. Elise asked whether there had been plans for additional funds from us after the loan closed. Aaron said no. Claire said nothing. I had not planned to bring up anything beyond the bank's existing evidence unless necessary. But Monica had told me I could identify relevant communications if Claire's story expanded. So I took out my phone. I received messages from Aaron saying Claire told him I would come around and that the loan was already approved at home. I said, I also have a joint account transfer to his company that Claire described to me as Dylan's filing cost. Aaron looked at Claire. That transfer was for the property due diligence, he said. Claire closed her eyes. Elise asked, were additional joint funds expected? Aaron hesitated. Claire mentioned there might be a contribution after closing. I turned to Claire. How much? It wasn't decided. How much? She snapped. Why does it matter now? Because it was our money. Aaron said. She mentioned $25,000. Claire swung toward him. You said that would protect the deposit. I said the project needed liquidity. You said once the bank funded, everything would stabilize. And you said your husband would sign. They were no longer coordinating their answers. Elise asked whether there were written communications about the expected transfer. Aaron said he would have to check. Claire said it had only been discussed generally. Then the compliance employee on the phone spoke. We have reviewed communications submitted with the application file. One message from the contact email associated with Mrs. Claire states that funds in the joint account may need to be moved quickly before Mr. Charles gets nervous. Claire stopped moving. I had not seen that message before. That was the piece the bank had kept private until the meeting. Elise read the date. It had been sent 2 days before Claire told me the bank appointment was about joint savings paperwork. I looked at Claire. She looked back at me, and for the first time since this started, she had no accusation ready. I asked one question. If I agreed to this, why did you need a fake email, a false story about your brother, a plan to move our money before I got nervous, and a signature I never made? Claire's face crumpled, but her voice came out angry. Because you never support anything unless it happens on your terms. No, I said. Because I didn't consent. You would have said no. Yes. To this, I would have. You didn't even give it a chance. You lied because you knew my answer and decided it didn't count. She looked at Aaron. Tell them you pressured me. Aaron's expression closed. I told you the financing deadline, he said. I did not tell you to sign for your husband. You knew what I was doing. I knew you said he had agreed. You just admitted you knew he hadn't signed. I knew the final page was outstanding. Claire laughed once, but there was no humor in it. So now I'm the only one responsible. Aaron did not answer. Elise did. The bank is not determining personal responsibility in this room. We are determining whether the application can proceed and whether submitted authorization is reliable. She closed the file. The loan will not proceed. The guarantee associated with Mr. Charles is disputed and cannot be validated. The related records will be preserved and referred through our internal fraud and compliance process. No financial information attributed to Mr. Charles may be reused in a revised application without new, independently verified authorization. Aaron leaned forward. What about the deposit deadline? That is outside the bank's decision. So the application is dead? This application will not be funded. He sat back and looked at Claire as if she had personally taken the money from him. Claire turned to me. You can still fix it. No. Just withdraw the complaint. I'm not withdrawing a truthful dispute. You're choosing this over our marriage. I looked at her for a long moment. Our marriage ended when you decided you could create my signature. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood, thanked Elise and Marcus, and left. There was no dramatic victory in the parking lot. I did not feel powerful. I sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel and realized that the person I had trusted most had treated my consent like an obstacle to manage. That afternoon, Monica began the separation paperwork. I returned to the house while Claire was still with Renee and collected my passport, social security card, tax records, insurance information, checkbooks, and account documents. I photographed the condition of shared property and made a written list of what I took. I did not remove furniture. I did not take her jewelry. I did not cancel utilities or block her from ordinary household money. I changed the lock on a small fireproof box that held my personal documents and moved it to a secure location. Claire sent one message that night. Aaron lost the deposit because of you. I replied, Aaron lost funding because the application relied on authorization I never gave. She wrote back, you always have to be technically right. I did not respond. The fallout unfolded over the next several weeks, not in one explosive moment. Aaron's property deal failed when the financing did not close. He lost a deposit he had put down, though I never learned the exact amount. Within days of the compliance meeting, he stopped taking Claire's calls. She told Renee he had abandoned her. Renee called him selfish. Dylan pointed out that Aaron had only stayed involved while Claire had access to our financial profile. The bank requested more information from Claire and Aaron as part of its review. There was no immediate arrest, no police scene, and no instant courtroom punishment. The documents simply became something they could no longer talk away. Claire could not claim I had agreed because the fake email existed. She could not claim Dylan was the borrower because Dylan denied it directly. She could not claim the money transfer was for his filing costs because Aaron had identified the actual purpose. And she could not claim she had been completely manipulated because her own messages showed planning. Renee stopped calling me after Dylan confronted her. He later told me he had asked one question: "When did you know it was Aaron's loan?" She admitted she knew before my bank appointment. Claire had told her that I would be more likely to cooperate if I thought Dylan's future depended on it. Renee had convinced herself that the deception was acceptable because the business might create a job for her son. Dylan told her, "You used my reputation to make Charles easier to pressure." That ended the family story that I had ruined Dylan's chance. He also told other relatives who had heard a vague version about me, refusing to help. He did not defend me as a hero. He simply corrected the facts. "I never asked for the loan," he told them. "Claire used my name. Stop blaming him for not signing." That was enough. During financial mediation, the $1,850 Claire had transferred without telling me was counted against her side of the property division. So were several smaller payments I had not noticed at first: application fees, document charges, and a payment to a consultant connected to Aaron's deal. The total was not enough to destroy either of us, but it was enough to prove the plan had been moving for weeks before the bank appointment. Monica also obtained a temporary agreement that neither of us would open new joint credit, pledge shared assets, or transfer large sums without written consent. Claire hated that provision. "It makes me look untrustworthy," she said during mediation. Monica did not respond. The mediator simply said, "The provision applies to both parties." Claire looked at me. "You know I would never do this again." I said, "I didn't know you would do it the first time." She cried then, quietly, with her face turned away. For a while, I wondered whether her remorse was real. I think some of it was. People can regret what they did and still be responsible for doing it. She had lost the marriage, the project, Aaron's attention, and the version of events where she was only trying to help everyone. But remorse did not restore trust. A month after the compliance meeting, she asked to speak with me alone after a mediation session. We met in a small waiting area outside the mediator's office. There were 2 chairs, a fake plant, and a water cooler that hummed every few minutes. Claire sat across from me, twisting her wedding ring around her finger. "Aaron manipulated me," she said. "I believe he used you." Her eyes lifted, hopeful. "But that isn't the whole story," I added. "He kept saying the deadline was closing and that once the loan funded, everything would be fine. You created an email in my name. I was trying to buy time. You signed a document. It was an electronic acknowledgement. The final guarantee still needed you. You planned to move $25,000. I didn't move it. Because I stopped the loan." She pressed her lips together. "I never meant to hurt you. You meant to override me. That's not the same thing. It is when the decision involved my identity and our money." She looked down at the ring again. "I thought you would be angry, but I thought you'd sign." "Why?" "Because you always calm down." I waited. She continued, "You hate conflict. You care about being stable. You would have seen how much was at stake and decided keeping the marriage together mattered more." There it was, clearer than anything in the bank file. She had not believed I was consenting. She had believed I was predictable. She believed I would swallow the betrayal to avoid the consequences of confronting it. I said, "You counted on me protecting the marriage from what you did to it." She started crying again. "I was desperate. You were deliberate." "That's cruel." "It's accurate." She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. "Do you still love me?" The question hurt more than I expected. "Yes," I said, "but loving you never meant giving you the right to forge my consent." "Then why can't we try counseling?" "Because counseling can help people communicate. It can't make me unknow that you built a plan around my refusal, not matching." I said, "I'm sorry." "I know. And that's not enough?" "No." She looked at me for a long time. Then she removed her ring and held it in her palm. "I thought you'd choose us." "I did choose us for 6 years. You chose Aaron's deal and expected me to pay for it." She flinched at Aaron's name. "He's gone," she said. That doesn't bring the marriage back. The divorce was finalized several months later. The bank confirmed in writing that the loan had been canceled and that I had no obligation connected to it. The disputed records remained part of its internal process, and I was advised to continue monitoring my credit. Claire received her share of the marital assets after adjustments for the unauthorized transfers and fees. I did not try to leave her with nothing. I wanted a clean separation, not revenge. Aaron disappeared from our lives once there was no funding to chase. As far as I know, he tried to restructure the project with another lender and failed because he no longer had the guarantor profile he had been counting on. Dylan and I are not suddenly best friends, but we talk occasionally. He has been more careful about his own finances since the incident. He told me being used as the family's excuse forced him to see how often his past mistakes had made him easy to blame. Renee never apologized directly. She sent one message after the divorce was final. "I wish this could have stayed inside the family." I replied, "It left the family when my name was put on bank documents." She did not answer. The last time I saw Claire was during the final exchange of a few remaining boxes. She stood by the open trunk of her car while I handed her a container of photo albums and kitchen items. She looked tired, but calmer than she had during the mediation. "I keep thinking about that day at the bank," she said. "So do I. If you had signed, do you think we would still be married?" I considered lying to make the ending easier. "No," I said. "We just would have stayed married longer while I carried a debt I never wanted and trusted you less every day." She nodded slowly. "I really thought you'd come around." "I know. That was the entire problem." I closed the trunk and stepped back. Freezing my credit did not destroy my marriage. The bank investigation did not destroy it either. Those actions exposed a marriage that had become safe for Claire only because she believed I would always surrender before she faced consequences. I did not scream at her in the bank. I did not drain our accounts, humiliate her online, or sabotage her life. I disputed a signature I did not make, protected the money I was legally entitled to protect, and refused to turn a lie into a valid contract. Then I walked away from a marriage that required my consent to remain optional. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.